You're listening to Solo in the Shop. This is episode 21, and in this one I'm going to give you a quick shop update, and then we're going to talk about some systems that I've implemented and that I've tried out to try and streamline running my small business. Whether you are a hobbyist, weekend warrior, making commissions for friends and family, or already a full-time maker, if you are solo in your shop, this is the show for you. I'm Ronald Lowe's, the host of Solo in the Shop, a woodworking podcast discussing everything from current projects, tools and techniques, decisions around running a small business, and much more. So if you frequently find yourself alone and covered in sawdust, follow my journey and we can be solo in the shop together. Hello, friends. It's been a busy week, and I just wanted to give you a quick update on what's been happening in the shop. I delivered a 10-foot long ash table on Saturday with the help of Anne, my wife, who is a trooper. She may have hurt herself a little bit. The table was heavier than we expected. It is 10 feet long and 42 inches wide, so it was pretty hefty. And the location, the room where we had to put it, was down a long hallway, so it was a little treacherous getting it in there and kind of didn't have room to maneuver. So there was a lot of pushing and pulling, and we were paying for it the next day. But that got delivered. The table just came out fantastic. I mean, working with ash is not my favorite, and the customer wanted it stained. I don't like to stain wood. That's not my jam. But the end result was amazing. It was, 10-foot ash with breadboard ends and a custom trestle base that I made with a 6-foot stretcher that goes between them. And I took a bunch of pictures of it, and now I like it so much. I want to put it on the website as another product. I think it would be even prettier made out of black walnut. So I would love to come up with some inexpensive way to show the same look in black walnut. Not sure how that's going to happen. But anyway, that table came out awesome. The other thing that happened, I mentioned in the last podcast that a neighbor came by and said, you really should just put window air conditioners in your garage so it's a little more comfortable. Made that happen, and he was right. It is, it's a big space, and it's a small window air conditioner, so it doesn't get what I would call chilly in there, but man, does it take the edge off. And there's been a couple days where it's been 90 plus degrees, and I just closed the garage up, crank the AC, go do something for a little while, and then walk into the garage, and it's so much nicer. So big tip of the hat to my neighbor, Dave, and his great advice. I'm so happy with that. The other thing that I mentioned last time was that I was going to go to the Business Networking International, or BNI, chapter meeting, and I did do that. And the jury's still out. I haven't closed the book on that, and here's why. The overall premise of the group is to get business leaders from the community all in a room once a week to talk about how their business is going and what they would look for currently for referrals. Like for me, I would love to find people who are nearing the end stage of finishing a new home, a vacation home, buying a new home, because these are people who are going to be looking to add furniture. So those are kind of a great referral for me. So to get those referrals, I'd love to be working with some realtors and real estate lawyers, things like that. And they are definitely represented in this group. There's also, a service master, disaster recovery guy. Well, if somebody loses all their furniture in a fire or a flood, they're also a good candidate for me. So at the same time, they're looking for the same thing, right? They want me to send them referrals. So if somebody, gets a table, but it's a new home and they're looking to get their rooms painted, there's a painting company that I could refer them to. And they run it almost like a contest where you enter into their system who you have referred. And there's small prizes each month and each quarter for the most referrals, the most connections made, things like that. So all of that really appeals to me. What was less appealing was the cost. It looks like it's about $1,100 a year. And then there's a chapter fee that's paid quarterly that's smaller, in the $100 to $150 range. And that just pays for the meeting space at the hotel where they meet on Thursday mornings. I was hesitant to jump into that because cash flow is a real concern for me right now. And one of the B&I reps called me and said, "Oh, we can work with you to put you on a 6-month payment plan." So to me, 6 months of paying $200 a month was more appealing. So that's why I'm still on the fence. If it was reach into your pocket and give us $1,100 right now, I would probably be a hard no for the time being. But if I can get on a payment plan, that's a lot more appealing. And especially if it can turn into real referrals and real business. Because for me, it takes one good table sale to cover the cost of that for a year. So would it be short-sighted to not do it? Perhaps. B&I seems to be very large, very active. There's chapters everywhere, all around the world. It is Business Networking International. And it looks like you can drop in as a guest in other chapters. So I do business all over New England. So I would love to go drop in on meetings up in New Hampshire or go to Maine, go to Vermont, even down to Rhode Island, and just get to know other people and explain what I'm looking for and just get some awareness out there. So B&I is still it's a decision to be finalized. A new thing that's come up was an introduction to a podcaster and radio show. The show is called Lisa and Robin on the Mic, and it's a local radio show that they record in Nashua, New Hampshire. It goes out live, it's recorded live, and then it's archived as a podcast. And this is another one of these on-the-fence decisions. I started listening to one of the episodes, and I listened to it for almost the full 2 hours. It's a 2-hour radio show. And for a good part of it, I was just like, what am I listening to? The premise is just two women talking about whatever they want to talk about. And what they were talking about was all over the place. It was recipes. It was customer service. It was doing things you don't want to do. It was shopping experiences. It was what's going on with their kids. It was, comments on traffic and business and generational differences and relationships. And it was just all over the place. And one of the hosts, Lisa, was an introduction from my friend Jennifer, and she called me and we had a good conversation. And she was like, we are kind of shifting our focus away from promoting businesses, but really emphasizing community and just having people get to know you, which is great. That lines up nicely with what I want to accomplish. And I can see how, if you have that kind of show, you don't want to bring on a business owner and just have them prattle on about how awesome their product is and how you're a fool not to be buying this now. Buy, enter this code for 20% off. And, that's not really the venue, that's not really the place for that kind of marketing. So the more I thought about it, and during my conversation with Lisa, I explained that at first I was very confused and unsure whether this was something that I wanted to get involved with, because it seemed to just be all over the place. But people do listen to their show. There is kind of a voyeuristic listen in on what's going on with their lives aspect to it. But at the same time, I started kind of picking out the things that they were talking about. One of the things was customer service, which, if you know me and the things that I've said in the past, customer service is a big, big focus for me. The other thing was that they were complaining that the brands of groceries, items that they pick up at the supermarket, had been reduced at the store that they normally go to. So to get all the items that they want in the brands that they wanted, they had to go to 2 stores. And at first I was like, well, that's really silly. But then I was like, no, these are the type of women that I sell to. This is my market. These are people who aren't looking for the cheapest version of everything, the off brands, the generics. They have things that they like and a certain lifestyle that they like, and they will do extra work and spend extra money and time to get exactly what they want. And that appeals to me a lot. I was like, this is exactly the kind of person that I want to talk with. So I do think that I will end up doing kind of a guest spot with them. It will not be a big expose on my company and my products, but it will be kind of a get to know you conversation. You know, I've said before that to be successful in what I consider a luxury brand, people have to know, like, and trust me. And getting out there and just having a conversation will probably help that goal. Now, evidently, once the episode is recorded, you know, they put it out there, but then I get a copy and I can promote their show and my own appearance, my guest spot on their show. So it serves as an evergreen marketing tool that works for both their show and my business. So I'm leaning towards doing that one. I'm going to listen to a few more of their episodes. They're very long, but I want to get a flavor for their conversations and their attitudes and their values and see if that's a fit. But I'm leaning towards it. So that's kind of what's going on in the shop. I've also had a couple opportunities come my way, and I want to share 2 things that aren't really specific to me. One does benefit me a little bit. So let's just get into it. When I do epoxy work, either I'm using a black dye or I am using a pigment. And I use eye candy pigments. And I have a toolbox that has probably 50 different eye candy pigments. And I love them. Every color you can imagine. And the action, the reflectiveness, the end result, though random, is always pretty spectacular. So I have been working with them to get an offer to provide to the listeners of Solo in the Shop. And so there is a 10% off coupon code you can use. It's just for the listeners of Solo in the Shop, and it's handmade by Ronald. Just enter it all as one word, handmade by Ronald, as a coupon code, eyecandypigments.com, 10% off. It's kind of the first affiliate kind of deal that I've gotten for this show. So I would love it if you guys would check them out. And if you're doing anything with epoxy, try out Eye Candy Pigments and get 10% off. The other thing I want to point you to is a group that I'm a member of. This is Handcrafted Success. It's an online community of woodworkers. It's run by Paul Menzel, who is the owner of Philadelphia Table Company. And it is a community of business owners, woodworkers, people who are making money at handcrafting in wood and sharing their experiences. We have Zoom calls every 2 weeks and an online kind of chat community. And if you are in that demographic, It's very low money, and I encourage you to check it out. I will leave a link for that in the show notes. It is a group organized under skool.com, SKOOL.com, and it's called Handcrafted Success. And you can search for that, or like I said, I'll leave a link in the show notes. The next thing I wanted to talk to you about is systems that I've tried out and use in my business. And I bring this up only because as I get busy, I find that I don't want to spend as much time doing some of the administrative tasks that running a small business requires. I've said before, the first thing that I did when I became an LLC is I found a CPA and I found a bookkeeper, and I have a remote bookkeeper who just has access to my accounts and to my bookkeeping system. And she spends 2 or 3 hours a month just categorizing my expenses, making sure that everything is in the right bucket so that it's real easy to do P&L, balance sheet, and year-end taxes. So if you don't want to specialize in being your own accountant, I highly recommend finding a bookkeeper. A lot of people use QuickBooks for the accounting part, for the categorizing and reconciling of your bank statements. I started that way, and my bookkeeper said, as a new business, you can save some money, and it's an easy switch to use a product called Xero, Xero, Xero. And so I made that switch. I feel like it is functionally equivalent to QuickBooks, but probably maybe not half the cost, but it's definitely a savings. The other thing that I got into early on was using HubSpot for CRM, customer relationship management or customer retention management. And I was shocked by how much HubSpot gives you for free. They do try to upsell you on all sorts of things, but if you're just starting out or you have a small manageable business, HubSpot is great for managing your email communication, keeping track of where people are in your sales pipeline, and keeping notes on the conversations that you've had so that when you pick up the phone or you get an email from somebody, you can be looking in HubSpot and see the whole history and see what the projected value of that customer is, where they are, have they bought from you before, all of these things that help take the burden off your brain of remembering, oh, did I talk to this person before? What did we talk about? Where are they? Are they close to making a decision, or are they building a house next year? Things like that. Now, I actually found HubSpot to be more than I needed. And as most of you know, I love doing a little computer programming. So I wrote my own. So I have my own contact management system. It keeps track of who I've talked to and how I've talked to them. Because the biggest thing I get is I'll remember that I owe somebody a quote or I owe them a contact. And I'll forget whether I heard from them on Messenger, on Instagram, an email, a text. How did I communicate with these people? And do I have a full profile on them with an address, a phone number, an email address, Instagram contact, Facebook contact, whatever? How am I talking with these people? But I kind of rolled my own. But if you're not like me and just enjoy that kind of programming task, I definitely recommend HubSpot. It was surprising how much it did for $0, and you can't beat free. I did the same thing for order management, and when I was apprenticing at Lighthouse, they had on the wall 2 pages, and I would say it's a checklist. In computer programming, we would call it the list that is the definition of done. Like, how do you know when something is done? And it was at the same time the standards. It was the manufacturing standards, such as no visible tool marks. Cracks and knots are filled uniformly. That doesn't mean that they're filled to a level of, veneer perfection. But however one thing is filled, everything is filled the same way and has the same feel about it, and it has a consistent look. Whether that's epoxy, whether that's P-Tech, whether it's Starbond, something consistent so that it has a uniform look. So I ended up rolling my own order management system that does both. Is that once somebody goes from being a contact to being a customer, it will allow me to track each order, the order status, the order value, how much has been paid and what payments are either outstanding or being made, how they paid. And it also pulls in their original order form and automatically populates the checklist. And the checklist is broken down into, pre-construction steps like ordering legs, ordering wood, making sure I have the right finish. If there's a stain, do I have the right stain? Is the color decisions made? Do I need epoxy? How much epoxy do I need? And do I have that on hand? And then it gets into, is there a glue up that needs to happen? So everything needs to be the rough milling done. Doesn't need to be glued up. Is it flat? Once it's flat, then we get into sanding the bottom, leg placement, C-channels, that kind of support system. One of the things that got me thinking about systems is that every now and then, including the ash table that I just delivered, I forget to put the company medallion somewhere on the piece of furniture. And that's on the checklist. And I honestly just did not check the list when I went to deliver that table. Because normally I'm like, okay, this looks great. Check everything off, update the status to completed and ready for delivery, wrap it up, deliver it, and then update the status to delivered, and that gets it into the completed work category. Didn't do that with the ash table, and Anne reminded me as we're driving around, she's like, I didn't see your medallion on there. I was like, oh man. And it's a small thing, but it's a marketing thing. It's a consistency. It's a brand awareness thing. And I wish I had gotten it on there. So that's kind of what got me thinking, okay, I really need to be using my checklist more diligently. I definitely refer to it on every project, mostly because it's got all the dimensions and colors and the finish and what we've talked about leading up to the project. If customers say we want live edge, but we don't want it to be too curvy, too much of an hourglass, then those kind of notes are in there and I can refer to those as I'm working. So having some kind of order management and build management is a great tool to have automated to a point where you don't have to recreate all the thought that goes into the checklist every time. I just say, I've got a new order, and boom, it populates it and says, okay, well, here's all the things that you're going to need to do. In summary, my message is this. If you want to have more time playing around in the shop, add systems to your business so that you can offload a lot of the administrative tasks and free up your time to spend it in the shop or doing whatever you want to do. It'd be nice to just, have these systems in place and then hire somebody to sand for a while, and then you've got half a day to go fishing or play golf or whatever. So that is what I have for you this week. Check out the show notes for the links to Handcrafted Success and Eye Candy Pigments. Stay safe in your shop, and I'll talk to you again soon. If you have questions, comments, or suggestions for future episodes, feel free to reach out to me at SoloInTheShop@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you got value from it and would like to help the show grow, I'd appreciate a review wherever you listen. Be sure to check the show notes for links to my socials or any extra stuff we discussed today. Until next time, stay safe in your shop, and we'll talk again soon.